ball rolling. Alright everyone, so we have Mitch Brown here getting ready to do his presentation on leadership. Let's all give him a hand.
Thank you very much, Jackson. Alright, so as he said, I'm going to be talking about leadership today. So, when I first think of a leader, something that always pops in my head is this picture. Think of this. Think not to be a boss and be just directing people on, you do this, you do this, you do this. You're that man or woman who's on the front lines and directing the charge forward. But, you can't always be sitting there and just be directing forward and saying, we need to do this, this, and this. There's different types of approaches you need to take in leadership. Alright, so I'm going to start this off with a story. So, as some of you know, I'm in a program called the Civil Air Patrol. Basically, it's part of the United States Air Force. I think I talked about this last time when I did a presentation. And there was this one time where there's this school going on in Nevada, and I worked with the people who were running this school, and they called me up and they said, Captain Brown, we need you to get here because we lost a member of our staff. We lost a squadron commander. We need somebody to help replace. I said, awesome, no problem. They flew me out to Nevada, and I was in charge of a fairly big amount of people. I was in charge of about 50 people. And there's 2 people who were in charge of their groups of 25. Now, when I got them, I met the 2 people. They were sitting there, and they were already relatively confident in what they were doing. They already had a plan, and they were ready to go. At this point, what a lot of people do is they want to start taking charge, and they want to say, all right, awesome, you do this, and we're going to get this entire thing done. We're going to be the best squadron here. But I decided I would take a step back and sort of evaluate the situation again, because they most likely, already had planned this out for months in advance, and while I wasn't even involved. So I decided that I would take more of a stepped back approach. I would take basically a supporting, a delegating, or what a lot of people have probably heard, a laissez-faire approach to my leadership style. So I didn't go in and direct them. I sort of gave them that psychological ownership of it and saying, hey, you know what? You guys can do it. You guys have already practiced this. I'm just going to take a step back, and I'm just going to help you out where you need help. And we actually were very successful through that weekend because they were like, all right, I sort of gave them the freedom to do what they want and do what they felt was the correct thing to do in that situation. And we had a fantastic week, and actually somebody came up to me afterwards and saying, like, that was one of the best squadrons that I've ever seen at this school. That was fantastic. And I'm like, I just sat here. I didn't do anything. It's all my flight commander's jobs. They did fantastic. And it makes the whole situation run clearly. But that would have never happened if I decided, hey, you know what? I'm just going to direct everybody to do this. So what I'm going to go over today is a little thing called situational leadership. It's basically these 4 different stages you can take to approach a situation where you're going to be leading somebody or teaching someone. So it basically goes like this. It's S1, S2, S3, and S4, situation 1, and situation 2 goes on. So it's directing, coaching, supporting, and delegating. Let me walk you through a couple of these. Awesome. So directing. Directing is that first stage where they just came, and at this point they're very excited to join. They're like, awesome, I'm going to learn about communication today. I'm so excited, I'm ready to go. And they're at their highest motivation you can get them to. So you don't really need to be there to hold their hand and say, like, oh, you can do this at this point, because they're excited. They signed up. They're ready to go. But at this point, they know nothing. This is where the directing comes in. You're really going to be teaching them, like, hey, you need to do this right here. For example, like in the communications class, right, you need to do your homework. You need to do these pages. And you really need to hold their hand through the process, but you don't need to keep their motivation up because they're excited to be here, they're ready to go. But after a while, they get to this point where now they know a little bit, they're pretty confident in what they're doing, but now they're starting to sort of like, oh, well, this is so much work. Why did I sign up for this communications class? Why am I doing this? And they're sort of just in a slump. At this point, where you are is you're sort of in a mix of very high support and pretty high directing. So you're still giving them directions because they're still relatively new at whatever they're teaching, whatever you're leading them through. But this point is that point where their motivation is at the lowest. So I put up pictures of coaching somebody through soccer. Like a couple of these kids probably look very tired. Like, oh, I don't want to be here anymore playing soccer. So you gotta really like, hey, we can do this, we can win, whatever. You gotta power them through it. So this next one's supporting. So at this point, these people have done this job for a while now, and they're pretty good at what they're doing. They're at this point where, you're sort of just sitting there and you don't have to give them much direction. You don't have to say like, hey, do this, because they kind of know what they're doing at this point. But at this point, all you really need to give them is that support. Like say, hey, I'm here for you, and sort of be in their corner. You're sort of sitting there in a boxing match, at this point, the boxers are going. There's no coaching you can really do from this point. You can kind of give them some tips, but they're fighting, and you just have to sit there and sort of be there to help them out if they fall. And the last spot we're going to is that same spot that I took in my story I gave you when I was that squadron commander, it's delegating or laissez-faire. So, very big thing I have to say about laissez-faire is it isn't 100% hands-off. You're not just taking that huge step and like go and make yourself some coffee and a sandwich. No, you're still sitting there and you're there in case someone needs you. But even if they need you at that point, you're going to basically let them figure out it for themselves. You're just there to help them out so they get the mission done. So a leader like this right here, he's probably has some type of mission he has to do. He has to, let's say he has to create a design for something. He has his team. At this point, he's probably going to give a speech in the beginning saying, hey, this is what the design kind of needs to look like, this is what we're going to do, awesome, I'll come check on you in 30 minutes. And he's going to walk away, and they're going to work for him, and he will come back then later and say, hey, how's it going? And give a check-in, but not really push the issue because he's not working anymore, they're in charge. If you have a group of people who are in this situation and then you walk in and start directing them, it makes them feel like, whoa, what are you doing? Like, I already know what I'm doing here. I'm just like one step above your level of competence in this. So, or one step below your level of competence in this. So you can't just come in here and direct people around. I think this stage as well is also perfect if you're in a situation like you are assigned the leader in the group work. You can sort of sit there and have this laissez-faire delegating while you're working on your own work and sitting there like, all right, you guys are doing this, awesome, I trust that you can do it, and just check up on them later. So you aren't just sitting there and like, are you doing the work? Because nobody likes that. So we're going to go into the conclusion now, and why is this important? So conclusion, I talked about the 4 different situations. S1, which is directing. Remember that's sort of that high directive, low supportive. And the next one was coaching, where it's high directive and high supportive behavior. Then it was supporting, high supporting, low directive behavior, and then laissez-faire or delegating, which is low supporting, low directing. So why is this important? Why should you care about what I just told you about? So why I always love situational leadership is because it's something that's very easy that you can just remember in the back of your head. And you can use it in almost any type of communication aspect.